Welcome back to the Vandy 24/7 podcast. I'm Joey Dwyer. Here late on a Tuesday night, Vanderbilt has landed a commitment from Chandler Bing. The guy's a high schooler, right? Vanderbilt's landed a lot of transfers, but quietly has a three-man high school class in the class of 2025 that will join it. Chandler Bing being the most recent addition. He'd visited a few months back, February 23rd, for the Ole Miss game in which Vanderbilt won 77-72, and I really hadn't heard a lot about Chandler Bing since the visit. From all accounts, I thought it went well, but I really didn't know what the level of interest on both sides was at that point. And I guess from my side, I get in the elevator at Hawkins Field, and oh crap, Vanderbilt just got a commitment, and it's been a while since I've watched the guy, so it took a while to get in front of the camera here, but I think an addition that makes sense for where Vanderbilt is in terms of its roster building. And I think there's obviously going to be the criticism of, like, you want another scoring guard. And I do think Vanderbilt is going to address that and try to get another scoring guard. I don't know what kind of guy it's going to be able to get at this stage in the portal. And I don't know that this was a only Chandler Bing decision to take another high schooler, right? I think you have to look at how the portal's shaking out, how you feel about your current roster, and if you're comfortable taking another high schooler, especially one who's not a five-star and might not play right away 24/7, doesn't have him evaluated. So I think, first of all, you're looking at all the options there, and Vanderbilt eventually decides it should take Chandler Bing, and man, what a late riser, and good for him that he was able to end up at a Power 5, because I do think the skill set lends itself to having Power 5 upside for sure. He used to be a Texas State commit, really had only reported mid-major offers to this point, but I mean, I think you watch the tape and you see maybe why he was a little under the radar, right? The plays don't always jump off at you, but also it's like you're looking at it and saying, man, that guy could be a really good college basketball player if he's willing to do his time, work on his body a little bit. I think he could be a program-type player for Vanderbilt. First of all, really athletic, really fluid, 6'6". I would venture to guess the wingspan is longer than that. Seems like he can switch a little bit. Seems like he's versatile. So all those boxes to me are checked, which I think that's the position that you really like your chances developing if you're Vanderbilt, because you have so many guys ahead of him who I think are capable players that don't force Chandler Bing to play this year. I think it's kind of a similar scenario to Tyler Tanner last year, where you look at Tyler Tanner, and if he had not had a great summer last year, he wouldn't have played, and that was going to be okay. And I think it's the same way with Chandler Bing, because they've got Tyler Harris, they've got A.K. Okereke, they've got Tyler Nickel, got Mike James, so all the minutes that they need covered at the three are fine. That's actually their deepest position on the roster. And I don't even know if Chandler Bing has a great summer that he'll be able to see the floor. Maybe he'd avoid a red shirt at that point, but I think he's really gifted. First of all, too, you really like that he goes to his Barkley like A.K. Okereke does. I think that signals that he's smart and mature. I think he's a fluid shooter who can get it off somewhat quickly. You really like the post fadeaways, too. I think that indicates to you that there is some tough shot-making ability in there. I think he's probably above average shot maker at that level. Most of his EYBL tape kind of has him playing off the ball, and he's kind of catching and shooting it. He's going off of closeouts, but when he goes downhill and he gets towards the rim, I think he's really tough to stop. I think he's a really good dunker. I mean, there's a lot of really impressive highlights with him around the rim. I think also he's a really good contorter of his body around the rim. I think he really knows how to use his body and really knows how to shift midair and put it off the glass and score. I think the finishing is also going to be helped as he puts some more weight on, as is the guard posts, which he's going to need to put on some weight if he wants to be able to do that at the college level. I think you're seeing a lot of him overpowering smaller guys that he gets switched onto him, or even smaller guys that are tasked with defending him for the entire game. Those are where a lot of his points, at least the high school level, are coming from. I didn't see that as much in the EYBL tape. And guys, honestly, like this is not the Tyler Harris one where we had a month to watch Tyler Harris before filming the video. This was kind of sudden, and just kind of trying to evaluate where we can. But I do think Chandler Bing is, again, a really high upside guy for them, who I think also has some defensive capability. I think he's a guy who can switch a little bit for them. I think the length and athleticism really help. And also, he's shown in some of the film I've seen that he's got a willingness to get dirty a little bit defensively. I've seen him take charges. I've seen him go up and block smaller guards around the rim. I think he's a really disruptive guy, and I really haven't got enough of a feel as to where his butt-down defense is. But I think, first of all, you like the versatility defensively, and you also like some of the disruption that he's been able to cause at the levels he's played at. I think that's an indicator that he's willing to help defensively. He's a willing defender and a versatile defender at the very least, and I think that's a great starting point. And as he puts more onto his body and you look at the way he moves, I think he has the capability to be a really good defender in college. And Vanderbilt's got to like that at this stage. It's wanting a lot of wings, and oftentimes if you get the type of wings that Vanderbilt gets who are really talented offensively, you're sometimes looking at them and saying, well, they're work in progress defensively, kind of like Tyler Nickel. I think Bing could be a guy who is able to be a good defender at some point throughout his career, and I think once he can kind of be disruptive the way he is, he's a really good transition player from all accounts. And even from some of the stuff I've watched, I think he could be a really good transition player. I think that's where he could thrive because he's such a good driver. But I think his handle still needs a tiny bit of work before really contributing at the next level. Transition, I think, is really a place where his game thrives right now, where he can show off that length and athleticism and even some of the speed that he has and his finishing ability around the bucket. But also, it doesn't have to be you're putting it on the floor, pounding it before you can get an open look. So I think it's a pretty well-rounded game that is going to take some developing, but also I think he's looking at this roster and Vanderbilt's looking at how he fits in with this roster. Unranked recruit, right, in a position group that's the deepest on the roster in a three-man freshman class where you're not really expecting the other guys to contribute very much either. I think this is a nice addition in that way. Now, could they have gone out and got a more experienced guy? Sure, but I also think they've got a 9-man rotation, and the ball handler two guard that I think they're desiring at this point is more about quality than quantity. I don't think you really need to take two shots at that, right? I think it's more like, well, you get Travis Perry and he's going to contribute a lot, or you get somebody else who really isn't going to give you a whole lot. So I think in that way, it's all right. I do question, like, should they have taken two transfers here? I think the answer to that could have been yes, but also if you see a high schooler you really like and you know that there's not a ton of pressure on him to play right away and you feel good about the way you can develop him, I think that's fine as well. If you can sell him on the couple-year plan, that's fine, right? So Chandler Bing, I think, was a good developmental project who is probably somewhat inexpensive to them at this point. Maybe they can allocate more of their resources into the other guy that they're trying to get out of the portal at this point. And I think that's a fine outcome for them. So one more scholarship to fill. It's got to be a scoring two guard. Otherwise, I think it's somewhat of a weird fit in terms of what they're trying to build. But for now, Chandler Bing, I think a guy who could really be a good player for them down the line. I don't think it's going to come this year, but maybe you're looking up in a year and he's a guy they're projecting to be in the rotation. I think that's totally a realistic outcome here. So thank you guys for watching. God bless. And I'm sure we'll talk about him more throughout the summer. He's a guy that I think as we watch more film on, probably talk to Brandon over the summer about it as well. And we'll figure out what their freshman class is really going to look like. We'll hear stuff out of the summer. But for now, thank you guys for watching. God bless. And we'll talk soon. Peace.